Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Injustice For All MMA. My name is David, and this episode is for UFC Fight Night Fiziev versus Gamrot. This episode is super late, but we move on. Let's go straight into the card. There are no injustices, no robberies, no one got robbed. We go straight to the scorecards. It's a late episode, so I'll pontificate later. First honorable mention, first fight of the night, Vidal versus Rendon. This fight ended in a split decision. It was a weird fight. I don't think it should have been a split decision, but it was a weird fight. I had this 29-28 for Rendon. I gave her the last two rounds. In the first round, Vidal outstruck Rendon on the feet, pretty much on the feet. She outstruck her. In the second round, she was barely outstriking Rendon. Rendon gets the takedown, all right, and then lands very little ground and pound, but it's pretty much enough. It's enough for her to win this round. Vidal doesn't land enough on the feet to deter anything that happened on the ground later in round two. And then in round three, actually, I think it's somewhere in round two where there was like a boob punch where Rendon punched, I believe Rendon punched Vidal's boob, and Vidal was like, "Oh, no, I got fouled." She puts like her finger, she like wags her finger, and she's like, "Oh, I got fouled." And I'm thinking to myself, is that a foul? Like I can't remember the fight off my head, but I've seen a couple women's MMA fights where they're just hitting the chest. Now, granted, they weren't hitting the boob; they were hitting the chest, so the upper part of where the boobs are at. And I mean, I've just never seen someone just go, "Hey, we stopped the fight because he punched her boob." It makes sense, obviously, in hindsight, but in the moment, I just thought, she was just going to keep rolling. But no, she was like, "No, you fouled me." So it's crazy. I've seen a groin strike to a woman, and they were like, "Yep, we'll pause," and then a boob punch. So that's an interesting thing. Third round, Rendon outstruck Vidal on the feet, had a takedown with ground and pound. The match is hers at that point. You go to the judges' scorecards. Junichiro Kamijo, his scorecard reflects mine. Chris Lieben. Don't like the scorecard. He gives the first to Vidal. He gives the second to Vidal. That's nonsense. She doesn't do enough on the feet. In fact, she's barely outstriking Rendon on the feet before she gets taken down. So honorable mention there to Chris Lieben. And then Montalvo, his scorecard reflects mine as well. Next fight is next honorable mention is Mizuki versus Goldy. I had this 29-28. I gave Mizuki the first and the third round. When I saw the judges' scorecards, and we'll get to them in a second, I was not expecting these guys to be so off. So off. It's crazy. But they all somehow had 29-28, but they're all over the place. In the very first round, Mizuki outstrikes Goldy. It's very simple. You go to the second round. Both had a takedown, right? But Goldy outstrikes Mizuki barely. So they both get takedowns, but Goldy outstrikes Mizuki. It's easy. Third round, Mizuki outstrikes Goldy. Goldy goes for like 70 takedowns, gets 0 of them, and gets outstruck pretty much on the clinch and on the feet. And that's where you have that. You go to the judges' scorecards, and they're wonky. Okay, Adelaide Bird gives the first round to Mizuki, second round to Goldy, and then gives the last round to Goldy. So, I'm sorry, let me rephrase this. She gives the first two rounds to Mizuki, last round to Goldy. Honorable mention to Adelaide Bird. This is a stupid scorecard. How do you give the last round to Goldy, given that she was outstruck, she's going for takedowns, doesn't get any of them, I know that's irrelevant, but still, gets outstruck on the feet, nonsense. You go to Junichiro Kamijo, his scorecard reflects mine, and then Dave Lethaby gives the second round to Goldy. It's still an honorable mention here. Yes, both of them get takedowns. They're not really active down there. And Goldy is outstriking Mizuki on the feet. So honorable mention there to David Lethaby. You go to the next honorable mention. This was the fun fight. This was a fight I was looking forward to after seeing the clip of what Collier said to Usman. right? Where he said, your brother, you can't fight, your brother can, essentially is what he said. He said it much cooler than I'm saying it. But Usman versus Collier, 29-28 to Usman. Last 2 rounds I gave to Usman. Okay. First round, Collier is outstriking Usman. He wobbles him for a second, and then Usman has a little flurry at the end, but it's obvious that Collier outstruck Usman in total in this round. In the second round, after just a cut that lands strategically on, I think it's the left eye of Collier, Usman starts to get the better of Collier. He starts to outstrike him. And then in the third round, Usman gets a takedown and ground and pound for basically 2+ minutes of that third round. And that's pretty much it. You go to the scorecards. David Letheby, his scorecard reflects mine. Tony Weeks, his scorecard reflects mine. And then Jacob Montalvo, nonsense. He has a 30-27 for Usman. He gives the first round to Usman. Usman got outstruck well in that first round, and he got wobbled. And the only thing you could attribute to Usman in that first round is the flurry at the very end of the round, and that's not enough. That's not enough at all. So honorable mention there to Jacob Montalvo. All right, next honorable mention, Malkoun versus Brundage. This fight ends in a DQ win for Brundage. This is interesting, right? And I might just be babbling here. I don't have time to look it up. But same ref, Mark Smith, decides that Malkoun fouled Brundage. While essentially Malkoun gets a takedown, and he's landing ground and pound. And at first, and I've watched enough Malkoun fights to know that I already don't like how he fights, just off rip. He's just, I don't know, maybe it's just, I just don't like the way he fights. But what I've noticed in a lot of his fights that he's won is, or a lot of fighters that are down there, they are very quick to first hit the back of the head of the fighter that's down, and then start legalizing the ground and pound. And what I noticed from Mark Smith was, he immediately told him when he fouled him early on the ground and pound, and he told him, he's like, hey, watch those strikes. He says it stern. And Malkoun is very close. Like, these strikes that he's landing are very close to touching the back of the head, but this strike was so bad. It wasn't so bad. I mean, it was bad. An elbow, forearm, back of the head, connects. Mark Smith is like, nope, no, not having it. Brundage, unable to go. Could he have gone? Maybe, but he's like, no, I'm not risking it. And I kind of like that. I'm kind of happy about that. Do I like it when a title changes hands? Maybe it's a double standard. Definitely not, but this was just a regular fight. Malkoun deserved to lose. He deserved to get this DQ because it was just a net. I mean, he has eyes. He's able-bodied. He's not retarded. And an elbow straight to the back of the head. Where was he? He wasn't even turning the elbow. It was just a straight forearm to the back of the head. It's like he doesn't. It's almost as though he doesn't train for his biggest attribute. His biggest attribute, his only attribute, is taking people down. All of his fights have been on the ground. This dude's stand-up is 0, and yet he doesn't know how to strike correctly when he's on top of people. It's a good job on Mark Smith for giving him a DQ. Next honorable mention is Argueta versus Johns. I had this 29-28 for Johns. I give the last 2 rounds to Johns. The first round is it's a little close. It's close-ish, but I don't think it's close at all, and I'll explain in a second. In that first round, both fighters got a takedown. And the takedown I'm attributing to Argueta is when he was on top of Johns' back. Now, if you listen to the show multiple times, you know that that should be counted as a takedown, but whatever. He has Argueta's back. Argueta has Johns' back for, I want to say, a while. Maybe I want to say the first half of the round. And he lands some good amount of shots on Johns while he's up there. And then when once he gets off, once Argueta gets off of Johns outstrikes Argueta on the feet slightly. It's not like he outstruck him enough to win this round. He just kind of landed a couple shots and then the round ends. That is not enough, in my opinion. That is not enough for Johns to win this round. You go to the second round where pretty much everything changed. Again, both guys got a takedown, but the biggest thing here is Johns gets up from when he's on the bottom and outstrikes Argueta well on the feet, and that gives him the round. Third round, same thing. Argueta's game plan is pretty much just, I can't strike against Johns, and so I have to just keep going forward. Johns outstrikes him on the feet. He drops him, and he gets a takedown on top of Argueta, and that wins him the final round. You go to the judges' scorecards, okay? And Jacob Montalvo is the only one whose scorecard reflects mine. So I don't want to give an honorable mention to anyone. Jacob Montalvo's, his scorecard reflects mine. Anthony Manis and Junichiro Kamijo both have it 30-27 for Johns, and they both give the first round to Johns. I don't agree with it, but there's nothing I can do about it. Once I said close, I'm shooting myself in the foot if I were to give them an honorable mention. We go to the next honorable mention, and that is a beautiful performance by Marina Rodriguez. This fight ends in a TKO in the second round. It could have been ended in the first, honestly. Thank goodness it wasn't. I was actually happy it wasn't. But, I'm not a fighter. Ends in a TKO in the second round. I gave it 10-9 in the first. Probably a 10-8, but I gave it 10-9 in the first to Marina Rodriguez. Definite possible 10-8. In that first round, both fighters had a takedown. But once they got up, it was pretty much Rodriguez was outstriking Waterson with elbows, knees. That was really important bit, because once they were in the clinch, it was just constant knees. And I believe at one point when they initially locked into the clinch on the fence, it was a couple knees from Rodriguez, and then there was a third one that just landed perfectly, to where you could see the body. A lot of the male fights, these guys' poker faces are so good. They're amazing. They're incredible. There's very few times, and I know I'm saying, you know what I'm trying to say here when I say very few times, but there's very few times where you see a shot land and the guy kind of like grimaces, but then he's back into regular stance mode. No. It kind of amazed me that she didn't jump on her quicker, but she hits her with the third knee that gets Waterson. Waterson hunches. It's not a heavy hunch, but it's a slight hunch, and Rodriguez is on her from there on out, and she outstrikes her by a wide margin, to where it's technically, it should be a 10-8, but I gave it 10-9. You got the judges' scorecards, all three of them. Chris Flores, Junichiro Kamijo, Jacob Montalvo, all 10-8 in that round. Next honorable mention is the fight everyone's talking about, is Bryce Mitchell versus Danny Ige. I had this 29-28. Last two rounds for Mitchell, first round for Ige. I was surprised to see scorecards for Mitchell in that first round. It's stupid scorecard. It's stupid. These people, what the fuck are you scoring? What the fuck are you scoring? I had this 29-28 for Mitchell, last two rounds for Mitchell. Bisping says, I think in the third round, somewhere in the third round, late in the third round, Bisping, who, as you know, I'm not too fond of, Bisping, and not for Mitchell reasons, just for him being on the mic reasons, Bisping says, first round for Ige, and at this point, I don't even know if he knows what he's talking about. He's just waffling. He says, first round for Ige, third round for Mitchell, second round is close. This guy just continues to say everything is close. He can never stand in being wrong. It's close, even though we know it's not close. The second round isn't close. And we'll get into it. So, first round, Ige outstrikes Mitchell on the feet. Pretty simple. in the last few fights that Mitchell has had, his striking isn't bad. It just seems to be that when Mitchell goes fully into wrestling, his striking is bad. Because, granted, when he struck with Barbosa, his striking wasn't bad because he used that to grapple. So that's an asterisk. You could do the same thing with some other opponents. Here, he just decided, my striking sucks. Ige outstrikes him on the feet. Mitchell gets a takedown like in the very few, I'm talking about last minute, but he's getting outstruck the entire round. Last minute of this round. Now, you can make an argument that, okay, Ige didn't outstrike him by a lot, but he outstrikes him well enough to where when Mitchell gets this takedown in the last minute, the dying minutes, right, gets a takedown, gets some ground and pound. This ground and pound it's not even, if you rewatch the ground and pound sequence, it's Ige kind of getting up a little bit and dodging half of those ground and pound strikes. Very few ground and pound strikes from Mitchell land. And this round should go to Ige. And if it doesn't, it's a stupid scorecard. You go to the second round, close on the feet. They're actually kind of landing occasionally on each other. It's close on the feet. Mitchell gets a takedown with a little bit of ground and pound and a submission attempt. This is clearly Mitchell's round. Third round, Mitchell just goes all out. He has 2 takedowns. Very little ground and pound, and then Ige has a reversal at the very end, and that round belongs to Mitchell. That's where you get 29-28. You go to the judges' scorecards. Dan Letheby, his scorecard reflects mine. That's the correct scorecard. I don't know the fuck anyone is watching. Jacob Montalva, it's just a shitty score. He gives the first round to Mitchell. Nonsense. He gives the second round to Ige. Where in the world do you give a second round to Ige? Someone talk to me. Tell me where you get. It's close on the feet. Those guys are like trading. Like Ige lands a couple shots, Mitchell lands a couple shots, and then boom, it's Mitchell straight into a takedown, and he's there for the remainder of the round, remainder of the 3 minutes of that round, with a takedown, a little bit of ground and pound, and a submission attempt. Granted, it wasn't in, but it was in. Well, it was in enough to where Ige was answering the phone, defense mechanism for when the submission was in. And that round goes to Ige? What are we watching? Stupid. Honorable mention there to Jacob Montalvo. And then Junichiro Kamijo, he has a 30-27 for Mitchell. Honorable mention there, he gives the first round to Mitchell. Ridiculous scoring on this one. And then you go to, sadly, the end of the main event. It's a TKO win for Gamrot. It's Fiziev versus Gamrot. All right. It ends in a TKO win by injury. I want to say, I wonder what they officially put. Yeah, they just put by TKO, but yeah, TKO injury. They put TKO injury. Basically, in the first round, Gamrot outstrikes Fiziev. He's outstriking Fiziev fairly well. Like, the way Gamrot moves, his pace and everything. Gamrot's just a weird and very lucky fighter. I'll get to that in a second. But he just showed problems for Fiziev in that first round. 10-9 to Gamrot. And then in the second round, Fiziev goes for like a body kick. I want to say a body kick. And it lands on the elbow. The right foot lands on the elbow of Gamrot, and his left leg kind of pops, and I don't know what injury he has yet, but that was pretty much the end. Gamrot lands a couple ground and pound shots. It stopped. Game over. Fight over. This is like the third time someone has busted their leg in the apex, and my running theory seems to be the apex is so small that if you compare the movements of the apex to the regular size octagon, that's in arenas, the movement's different. You have so much space to kind of like move, and depending on what you're doing, right? If someone's really pushing the pace on you, if someone's really going forward, blah blah blah, it dictates a different kind of thing. But in the apex, you just notice that everything's tight. It's just tighter, and my opinion has to be that these guys are maybe too close to each other. And it's a running theory. As I'm saying it sounds dumb and it sounds smart at the same time in my head, but this is just what I'm going through. When it happened to Rakic, I can't remember if he was going for a takedown or if he threw something. ACL tear. Same thing with Cater. I think he threw something. No, I think he went for like a flying knee and landed a weird ACL. And then we have here where it's just a kick and his foot. And I'm assuming what it was the impact of the right foot landing on the elbow of Gamrot somehow impacted the left foot, and pop, his leg goes. So it's just a sad ending for a really good, for actually a really decent fight night. Really good fight night. So yeah, I have some awards to give out just to end this off. I'm going to start doing performance bonuses. I won't give them any money because I don't have $50K, but my performance goes to Marina Rodriguez, and I'm going to see Marina Rodriguez and Charles Jourdain. I mean, Charles Jourdain's just, bro, he's just a fun fight. He's a super fun fighter to just watch. He's so fun to watch. So, there's that. I don't have a fight of the night here. So I'm going to give another bonus to Tim Means because he just dismantled Fialho. And then a fourth one would be the Rendon Vidal fight is pretty boring. Mizuki Goldy is also pretty boring. I mean, actually, it was fine, but not worth the bonus. Usman Collier, no. I guess the fourth bonus would go to Battle. Fourth one would go to Battle for the comeback, basically, because he lost the first round and then a submission win in the second round. Crazy stuff. But anyways, that's all I have for you guys. Thank you for listening. I know it's late. Thank you for listening, and God bless.